Three, two, one. I'm John Miglosh for the WDMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. See how I did that different today? No, you won't see it if you watch the abridged copy, but if you're live here, you'll see it. That I actually paused after the one. So I can't quite cut it at the one and leave the one off. So I'm now putting that in there. So thank you all for watching. So we're continuing on with RFM. What's wrong with RFM? Everybody says, "Oh, RFM is great." Yeah, right. In fact, there's a lot of articles, and I did that at the beginning of this series. That this is like the breakthrough for the e-commerce companies who haven't worried about that. They just worried about being the low price and being out there, and the world will beat a path to your door. But now they're realizing that maybe they should try to get repeat purchases. And the problem is that if you're not careful, like Cabela's, I went around and interviewed about 40 hunters and fishermen out in the outdoor supply sections of the different stores. And I said, "Have you ever heard of Cabela's?" And this was back before they had stores in Wisconsin. And everybody said yes. And I said, and no, they went on and they all said, everybody said, "Yes, we've heard of them. And I used to get their catalog." That is exactly what everyone said. It was fascinating. And I said, "Oh, okay." And that was when I started working with Cabela's, they all said, "Oh, yeah, well, we cut them off at 12 months. And the interesting thing that happened, as you've heard from me before, probably, is that if they bought a fishing lure, even one lure, and then a couple months later, they would get a catalog because it took a little while, like 3 months. And so now they get the hunting or the bow hunting catalog, or they get the turkey hunting catalog, or they get the camping catalog, and around it goes. And by the time we're getting ready to do the fishing again, they're almost 12 months since they've ordered. Now, they haven't gotten 12 catalogs, but they're 12 months since they've ordered. And so the RFM cut them off. And so when we started modeling for them, because they were so slavish at RFM, everybody said, "Yes, I've heard of it. I used to get their catalog." Okay? Got to be careful. They were slavish just on recency primarily, but there were some other things that they did, which is in my book. Okay, so they cut their circulation dramatically, and what we found was there was a lot more viable buyers than they knew about, and so we were able to help them grow dramatically, which was what Dick hired us for. Okay, it requires more data on the poor customers. If you think back to the one-time buyers, if half your file is one-time buyers, they only bought once. Okay, now you score on recency; they haven't bought lately. And let's get a picture of that. We got actually a picture. The next slide is a picture of that. Here is an actual client. I don't remember who, but it doesn't matter because they all look like this. And this is very high frequency and very high recency. Okay, so this is the matrix of frequency and recency, not frequency. It says frequency and monetary, but it's actually recency and monetary. Okay, so monetary is a little more flexible than frequency. It's easier to score too. Okay, but what you see is that you see that a huge percentage of the file, and here's just a 5x5, so it's a 25 cell picture, and of that 25 cells, yeah, probably at least half, probably more than half, ends up, even with our good scoring. This isn't the quintiles, but even with good scoring, well, of course, the good scoring, the one-time buyers are the one-time buyers. You can't help it, right? This is revenue. This isn't even that. It's just the revenue. So if we take 20% of the revenue, that's where that is. And I'm sorry to get so technical here, but I just want you to see that RFM, if you do it dynamically, will give you this. If you don't do it dynamically, it will give you nice, even segments, but it will also give you nonsense because all of this section of the model will all be one-time buyers, and there'd be no reason to split them, but you have split them because that's the way your algorithm works. This is why this stuff is so important. I know nobody thinks it's important, but it's important. It can ruin your business. We had a client that we got after they had installed new order processing software, and they were running recency, and it pulled the oldest names first instead of the newest names. Probably the programmer just said, "Oh, well, in monetary, the highest number is a 5 and the lowest number is a 1. In frequency, the highest number of orders is a 5 and the lowest number is a 1." right? So in recency, the highest number of months is a 5, and the lowest number is a 1. So they gave the 1 month old buyers a 1, and they gave the 60-month-old buyers a 5. And guess what? They almost went under because they couldn't figure it out. They did a mailing and nothing happened. They did another mailing and nothing happened. I think they were on their third one when they called us. And by then they had no money, but we bailed them out anyway. Always, always be careful when you put a new ERP system in. I highly recommend, if you're changing your order processing system, get somebody to replicate your list system and your marketing database offsite, and then you can make it relate to your old ERP or your old process, and you can make it relate to your new process without any real risk. But don't assume that the programmer who figures out how to ship packages knows how to segment your customers. Okay, so that's where we started. So what can we do? Well, one of the things we did with Cabela's was we built hunting RFM, fishing RFM, camping RFM, miscellaneous RFM. So we could know that the person, bought a lot of hunting, but he hadn't bought it in 3 years. But he bought fishing this year. Okay, and we could start getting a picture. And so when we had to decide whether to mail in the hunting catalog or the fishing catalog, instead of just pure RFM, we had this. Not only did we have this, but see, Cabela's had RFMP, and they put a little check mark next to people who bought hunting and people who bought fishing. But you could have bought $5,000 worth of fishing or hunting gear and bought one fishing lure. And so to their system, the way you looked was you looked like a big buyer who should get the fishing catalog, but you'd only bought one lure, right? It was a waste. There was a lot better people that we could mail before that, right? Does that make sense? Okay. And in fact, we found out that half the flags were, not half the flags, but a good 10% of the flags were wrong, where the person had a flag for buying fishing, and we couldn't find any fishing orders. Maybe they bought it way, way, way at the beginning, so it wasn't timely. So it was very, very static, and it was just really no good. And that's why their number one customer complaint was, why do you send me all these hunting or catalogs, or why do you send me all these fishing? Why do you send me the off season and not the real season? And it's because of the way they applied RFM. Okay, so they also asked, we had this survey data on 5,000 of our customers. Can we incorporate that into the model? And I said no, because 5,999,098,000 of them don't have any, or something. 95,000 of them don't have anything. We can't use that to select people. It's better to have geodemographics that hit everybody a little bit. Okay, and the idea is that you just have to create variables. You have to be creative. You have to do things that boil the straw down into the gold. It's a good metaphor, actually. Okay, so what's the process in building variables? The process is that we load data from a variety of sources, and we get more and more, and we integrate hygiene and matching and address correction, and that stuff you can get for darn near free now. And then we create behavior categories. We create dimensions of behavior. Okay, we take appended data, like a new client has age and income. Now, the tricky part about income for them and for a lot of mailers is that when I retire, my income might go to nothing, but I might have assets, And so, strictly speaking, I don't have a lot of income, but I could be pretty well off. You see that? And so you have to, and an asset category, now that's why I like dwelling value. That's why I like the geodemographics of neighborhood, because they're not quite so sensitive as the individual household ideas. If you live in a great neighborhood, you probably have some money to spend. Pretty simple. Okay? So that's what we do with it. We take the postal code and the census, and we can get data on that level. Maptitude is great for that. And we create variables for every zip code, for every census tract, for every 3-digit zip code. That's called SCF. Actually, those work the best. Those are actually solidly predictive. Zip codes are noise. Census tract is total noise. And we can explain that later. And that's the way we build the variables to make sense of things. Okay? So let's stop here because I've only got 15 seconds to go. Now, if you want to have fun with this, like Keith is on here every day. How does he do that? Well, the way he does it is he's downloaded the Periscope app to his phone, okay? And then he's gone and searched for Miglosh Marketing, and he's found me. And so he gets an alert every day when I start talking. It whistles like a little bird. And so he's right there all the time. So if you want to really have fun with our crazy news program, tomorrow I got some great crazy news. Download the Periscope app to your phone and hit subscribe on Miglash Marketing. I'm